All right, good afternoon. Tuesday, September 16th, about 1:15 in the afternoon as I record this podcast. It's the All 32 podcast. We are, of course, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network and brought to you by the number one daily fantasy sports app in North America. That, of course, is PrizePicks. Put down your 50, get 5 back. PrizePicks, run your game. We're going to go through 4 quarters, which is the new sort of setup here in this reconfigured All 32 pod as I fly solo on Tuesdays. Of course, Mondays after games, I record the Pats Interference podcast with Andrew Callahan, and then we wrap it up with another podcast at the end of the week. Last week, we had Devin McCourty. The week before, NFL Network Steve Weish working on a special guest this week as well to talk quarterbacks, specifically Drake Maye and the guy he'll be facing, the old-timer Aaron Rodgers with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But we'll start with first down, and to me, that was a master class in play calling from Josh McDaniels. Patriots spent more time under center, less time in spread and shotgun than they did in week one. They upped their use of motion, which is a huge tell for young quarterbacks, right? Are they playing zone? Are they playing man? Hey, let's make Drake feel comfortable. And then a lot of run action, play action. McDaniels called 5 boots, and Drake Maye is so just smooth. I think he loves those. I know he's talked about it before, but then when you see him execute it, you understand why McDaniels will dial some more of those up in this game. And in many ways, it was taking some things off his plate. And I know that was a huge debate last week, and people were on one side or the other. And, oh, were you calling him stupid? Or like, he's the quarterback, he should have a lot on his plate. McDaniels said, no, there wasn't too much on his plate. In fact, thought they hadn't given him a ton yet. Drake Maye said, no, I'm fine, but that's the position. You're supposed to have a lot on your plate. Well, I'll tell you this. When you run a boot, it's very simple. A lot of times, 2 receivers to your side. Cut us off at least a half of the field. Maybe you get 3. Maybe you go medium. Maybe you go short, medium, long. But in a lot of cases, it was just high-low. You make those reads. And if it's not there, you don't see it quickly, you use your athleticism and run. Maye in complete command in those situations. Very natural. I think that certainly helped settle him down. And then if you're not going to go there with the boots and sort of putting him in that place, how do you look the rest of the game? Decisive, right? The thing that I talked about last week were the hesitations on some of the throws. That didn't exist in this game. He saw it and he let it rip. There was no doubt. Only a couple, as I mentioned, bad decisions / bad throws / inaccurate throws over the course of the game. I think I had 3, maybe 4, depending on how you feel about how the clock was handled at the end of the second quarter when they got down in the red zone. Where he ran out of bounds at 2:38. He thought he could get the edge, couldn't. And then I'm not totally sure they knew the clock had wound, and then they had to call the timeout at 2:03. That gave the Dolphins a little bit more time, and they quickly went down the field after the Patriots field goal to cut it to a 1-point game. Those are the things that you want to kind of avoid. Put less on Miami's plate by being a little bit smarter on your own. But in general, Drake Maye, that's the best football game he's played. I wrote about it after the game. I talked about it with Callahan on Monday. Tell you now, again, better than what he did against Arizona. His first real impressive performance in a win start to finish. Yeah, he only had 1 of those last year. I know there's 3 on his record, but only 1 where he went start to finish, and that was the Chicago game, in which, quite frankly, might have been one of his worst games of the year. Kept trying to get out of the back of the pocket. Really kind of a mess. This game, not a mess at all. The best player, period, full stop, end of sentence, on the football field. That was Drake Maye. He owes a lot to Josh McDaniels for that. McDaniels also the ability to run the ball and then stick with the run, because they weren't awesome in the ground game. They had a few big plays, which I'm going to mention here, against that front 6 or front 7 of Miami, that by consistently staying with it, they forced Miami to remain engaged, which allows the boot action to work, which allows some of those screen passes to work, because they're not sure. Am I coming full bore? Do I need to peel back? Are they going to hit me with a draw? No. They dialed up beautifully. I think they threw 3 screens directly into blitzes and got big plays out of them. Big plays meaning, 10-plus yards on some of those screens. And not what you would call an explosive, but for this team, pretty damn good. But by continuing to run the ball, too, even when it wasn't working, you were in manageable positions, whether it's 3rd and medium or 3rd and short, like so much better of a place to operate from if you're a young quarterback in that game. Let's also not get it twisted and say that McDaniels took a lot off the plate in terms of what they were presenting to Miami, because on that first series, I think they had 4 different personnel groupings, which is the classic Josh. How are they going to react when we put out 12? How are they going to react when we put out Pony? How are they going to react when we're in 11 personnel? To whether we're talking for the layman, 3 wide receiver, 2 tight end, or the 2 backs in the backfield, to just sort of see how they would react. And then you file that away for later. Hey, when we brought this in, they went bigger. And so if they go bigger, maybe we want to go over the top of them. Those sorts of things play out over the course of the game. It's always a fact-finding mission for Josh. And just game 2 of their relationship together, a wise man told me last week, everybody wants to fast forward quarterback development. He goes, can't do it. They've got to play. You've got to be with them. You've got to understand what works for them, what doesn't work for them. The Patriots are figuring that out. And on Sunday in Miami, they figured it out really well. They were the best unit on the field. Drake Maye was the best player on the field. So in all, that meant the best day in Maye's career, as I mentioned. I'll give you some nerd numbers. Highest single game total EPA, plus 16.3. Highest single game EPA per play, plus 0.454. Easy for me to say. Highest single game CPOE, 13.5. Highest single game QBR, 77.9. And if you're into PFF, his highest single grade there. You know how I feel about the PFF grades. Don't love them, but sometimes those are the things you have to compare it to. But anyway, awesome game for Drake Maye. He was fantastic. Patriots leaned on him, relied on him, and he delivered for them in that spot. Let's get the second down. It's been a half dozen years since me personally, have not worried about the Patriots offensive line. And I know internally they had questions about it. And certainly over the last couple of years in particular, just not being able to have healthy bodies or have good improving bodies on the offensive line. And quite frankly, I went into this year and I kind of felt the same way. Like, okay, it shouldn't be as bad as last year. Hell, nothing should be as bad as last year. But don't pretend like we didn't have questions. You're starting 2 rookies on the left side, and Will Campbell at left tackle and Jared Wilson left guard. No one has done that voluntarily in the league for week 1 and now here week 2 in 25 years. You tend to want veterans back there. You might have a veteran left tackle and a rookie left guard. You might have a rookie left tackle, vice versa. You know what I'm trying to say. But the Patriots said, this is our best. We're going to go out there with them. Wilson was a weak link in week 1. Campbell, pretty good until the end, kind of fell off near the end of the game. But you had questions. Garrett Bradbury coming off one of the worst pass blocking seasons in recent memory. Minnesota couldn't move on fast enough. Then, of course, you have the big guys on the right side. Mike Onwenu gets paid and had his worst year as a professional. Didn't start playing good football until the final 3-4 weeks of the season. And Morgan Moses, who was a gamer, but he's 34. His body started to break down in the last couple years. And how long is that going to last, right? And I thought he was okay in week 1, did a decent job on Max Crosby. But in general, they didn't move any bodies in that game against the Raiders. And I think it contributed to them becoming one-dimensional and losing the football game. In this case, run blocking wasn't great again. Better, obviously, and they stuck with it more, and which allowed them to be more versatile. But it was the pass blocking thing that I can't get over. The front 4 of Miami, other than the receivers and HN, is the best part of this football team. And even though a couple of those guys, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, coming off injury and aren't the same players yet, and who knows if they'll ever be, but they're still good players. Don't get it twisted. That's still 2 really good football players. Chop Robinson to the mix, Zach Sealer in the middle. That's a good group. They played like crap against the Colts, and the Patriots made them play like crap in this game. And maybe we're going to look back on this 4 or 5 weeks from now, and they're still going to be playing like crap. And we're like, no, Chubb isn't the same. Robinson's not the guy. Phillips isn't the same. Sealer got paid. He's not the same. Whatever. But for right now, I still think they're good players, and you nullified them in the football game with the exception of a couple of pressures off of Morgan Moses, one off of Mike Onwenu. They pitched a clean sheet on the offensive line. Campbell dominated Chubb in the one-on-one matchups. And I know Chubb, I believe, was it Chubb had the sack off Trevion Henderson or maybe forced the hold? I can't remember. I've written so many things about this game. But point being, the weak link in the pass protection was a sack off of Hunter. Oh, that's where the sack came. I think Hunter Henry. And then Trevion Henderson obviously had a couple holds, 3 in the game, but 2 on pass protection where, negated plays for the Patriots. But in general, great job. Second week in a row for Garrett Bradbury. Again, I mentioned this, 28 one-on-one pressures last year allowed as the center of the Minnesota Vikings, which was tops in the league for the interior offensive line. Second straight week where he's allowed a clean sheet. I know he had the bad snap. His run blocking is his strength. And he was okay in week 1. He was better here in week 2, but still not at the level I think he's capable of. But the fact that he's giving you clean sheets in the middle, talk about just settling things down, especially with the 2 kids to your left side. But then the 2 kids really matured in this game. Struggled a little bit early with a couple stunts, but then as the game went on, they picked things up. As I mentioned, Campbell controlled Chubb. Wilson, also a clean sheet in pass protection, had the 1 holding penalty for a negative play, but he was the weak link in week 1. He was not the weak link in week 2. He might have been their best offensive lineman in week 2. Still have some concerns about the right side. Moses was seen in a walking boot after the game as he's dealing with his foot thing. Curious about his availability for this week. They'll practice on Wednesday, Thursday. We'll have a better sense then. Although he's proven that he doesn't necessarily have to be on the field to play on game day. He had 3 false starts in the game, which, could be heat, could be who he was opposite of, could be my foot's not feeling great, so I've got to try to cheat a little bit here. And then with Onwenu, better than week 1, where he, quite frankly, didn't look good at all. Still struggling to get to the second level. They're trying to run some of that wide zone, adopted some of the Shanahan principles in this game. Not that that's unfamiliar to Josh's offense. He doesn't get out to the second level very well. Their best runs were power and a wham, 21-yard run, 15-yard run from Gibson, 21-yard run from Stevenson. So those are sort of old principles and old standbys for Josh McDaniels. But that offensive line did a good job of executing it and at least put them in situations where they weren't taking negative plays in the run game. I don't believe there was a run less than 1 yard, with the exception of that swing pass to Rhamondre Stevenson, which, let's face it, was supposed to be a pass, but he ended up being a lateral on that play. And overall, when I talk about pass protection, just 7 pressures on 31 dropbacks. I mean, you'll sign up for that all day, every day. Drake Maye's life will be a hell of a lot easier because, as we know, he's faced a ton of pressure here in the very early stages of his NFL career with his 12 for 13 games, whatever it was last year, and now his first 2 this year. That was what you want for your young quarterback to make him, again, sort of settle into it. Hey, my guys are blocking for me. Now I can keep my eyes downfield. I don't have to worry about taking off when I don't want to or when it's not there. And he is a pretty good processor. I think we saw that at points last year. I think we saw it in the preseason in the joint practices against Minnesota, that's in there. Minnesota looked at him after that practice and said, well, that guy's smart. We threw a lot at him, and he handled it. So good news there for the New England Patriots. Before we get to third down, got to talk to you about our sponsor, our title sponsor, PrizePicks, which is just fantastic. We talk about it all the time. The idea that you can cross sports in this daily fantasy sports app and mix baseball. Now you've got football, you've got women's basketball playoffs. There's all sorts of soccer if you're into, and all you're doing is looking for stats. Do you have a feeling today that, say Ceddanne Raphael is due for a home run? You go look at the numbers and decide to take more or less on that, combine it with at least one other statistic from any other sport, or if you want to say same game, you do that. You can win up to 1,000 times your cash. So just download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off your first 5. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off your first 5. PrizePicks, run your game. And while we're here, I got to talk to you about something serious, but I think something very important. I never had life insurance. Got married, wasn't concerned about it. Get term life insurance. You pay a small amount. No, I'm not doing that. So what's the point? Then I had a kid. Then I had another kid. And it was like, what are you doing? How can you make sure that your family is protected if, God forbid, knock on wood, something happens to you? And that is why you want to get involved with Ethos, because they are the absolute best. With life insurance from them, your family is protected. There is no complicated process. It's 100% online. Who doesn't love that? You don't have to deal with a human being if you don't want to. And let's face it, since COVID, a lot of people decided, I like this whole shut-in thing. I don't want to deal with human beings. So let's do that thing where you don't have to go someplace, sit down, talk, fill all the paperwork. It's online. It's quick. You can get it done in as little as 10 minutes, and they can give you that quote. So you already know what it's going to cost me for what I want in terms of insurance. No medical exam required. Again, how rare is that to get? And you can get same-day coverage without leaving your house. Again, I want to do it right now. Bam, I'm on the thing. 10, 15 minutes later, I've got this thing figured out. I've got life insurance. Bingo. My family is protected were something to happen to me. That's fantastic. Life insurance is more affordable too, by the way, than you think. With Ethos, you can get a free quote and customize a rate that fits your budget. Who doesn't like that? We're all on kind of a budget these days, right? Everything getting more expensive. You can get up to $3 million in coverage, but some policies, depending on what number you're aiming for, can be as little as $2 a day. And just so you know, Ethos is a trustworthy company that disrupts the traditional life insurance industry. As of March 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. 3 million families have completed their applications and are on board with Ethos to find the right coverage. They have 4.8 out of 5 stars in Trustpilot reviews. So protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/all32. Again, that's ethos, ethos.com/all32. Don't be like me. Don't be stupid. Don't wait around. Get it done. You'll feel a lot better about yourself and about the safety of your family by using Ethos. All right, let's get to third down. I'm a softie as I get older, I guess. I feel really good for Rhamondre Stevenson. When you consider what he has gone through over the last year, some of it self-inflicted on the football field, right? The 7 fumbles last year. Just not anything that anybody expected, especially after week 1. Remember how awesome he was in Cincinnati. I think 125 yards rushing and like 120 of them came after contact. It was ridiculous. He looked phenomenal. And then the season went like this for him. And then obviously what's happened off the field. His father surprisingly passing away at the age of 54. That's a young man. And it was very difficult for Rhamondre to process, as he said, one of my best friends, if not my best friend, I think. Was away from the team a lot during the course of the offseason. The team worked with him on that because he wanted to be around his family as they all grieved over the loss of his father. Tony Dews, the running back coach, actually went out to see him after it happened, which I thought was a really classy sign and a committed sign to how much the Patriots and this new staff, not that the old staff didn't, but the new staff cares about its players. And Rhamondre came back and, he lost 10 pounds, but they drafted Trevion Henderson and there were whispers, his contract, is he really worth that? Henderson deserves to be on the field more, said a lot of people. Maybe he's not the Vrabel kind of guy. Maybe he's someone they cut. Maybe he's someone they try to trade. And Vrabel insisted back in the spring, no, he's going to be a big part of what we do. But until you see it actually happen, you're still not sure because, let's face it, most of the previous regime, and especially the guys that signed last offseason, were either on the trade block or have already been moved on from. And so maybe Rhamondre was going to be the next guy. I thought in week 1, there was nothing he could really do. There wasn't much space there. I had him as one mistake on a run. He made a bad cut on a crackback block that he went inside of and he should have kicked outside. But in general, he got what was there. In this game, phenomenal effort, phenomenal performance, rushed for 54 yards, added a career best 88 yards receiving, the 55-yarder, of course, everyone's talking about, which was a phenomenal catch, not just for a running back, but for a receiver. That was full extension off the fingertip grab, phenomenal play. And then how about the play he made on that ill-fated drive with the 2 penalties and the bad snap from Bradbury, where he at least wormed them out a first down on that screen pass where he should have gotten 5 or 6 yards, and he got 14 when they needed 13. Phenomenal running. He talked after the game. He got a game ball from Vrabel. I think it was implied, hey, you've been through a lot in the last year, and we appreciate you sticking with it and producing like you did. When Stevenson talked after the game at the podium, this quote I thought was fantastic. Talking about his father, he said he probably would have loved this game. Just remembering that and just remembering the things he would say and just keep going. Yeah, I think he'll be proud today. All right, yeah, it's good. That tugs at the heartstrings a little bit. Rhamondre also wearing a bracelet with some of his father's ashes in it, so he keeps him close. Just one of those stories, stick with the guy. I think when he gets his shoulders square and you give him a little bit of room to run, you see what he's capable of. And even though he's dropped the 10 pounds, and I wondered last week, is he not going to run through contact anymore like he did because of the less weight? 55 yards rushing in this game. He had 54 total, 55 yards after contact in the football game. So that means getting hit in the backfield and powering through some things to even turn what should be negative plays into positive plays is the Rhamondre Stevenson that we all know and thought was deserving of at least a raise, whether you like the contract or not, deserving of a raise last year when he got it. if you have that player, if that Rhamondre Stevenson shows up week in and week out and you can kind of give him that opportunity, the offense will be so much better. He's only 27 years old. Teammates love him. And I think you saw the reaction to his play. And certainly you saw the reaction in the locker room after he got the game ball. Let's get to the fourth quarter. All right. At what point do we start wondering if the Patriots defense isn't as good as we thought it was going to be? Or should I just make this personal? At what point am I going to look at this defense and say, you know, all your talk about being a top 10, top 12 defense, and who knows, maybe they could sneak into the top 8 if this guy pops on the edge and you get consistent play from your safeties, whatever it may be. Through 2 weeks, the numbers are concerning. And I understand Christian Gonzalez hasn't played for 2 weeks, and I'm not sure that we're going to see him in week 3. Again, he hasn't practiced since July the 28th. Pretty quick ramp up to get him back on the practice field this week, if that in fact happens, and then turn around and play him in the game on Sunday. Certainly playing for any extended period of time, but I would think they'd want him to have him practice, and then maybe you see him in week 4. Again, we'll find out. Wednesday practice tends to be a big tell. Certainly Thursday, if he's not out there by Thursday, you can pretty much kiss it goodbye. But as good as Christian Gonzalez was last year, is he someone who's going to turn the numbers that I'm about to present to you all by himself? And my answer to that would be, I don't think so. League worst 677 passing yards. Yeah, and you knew both teams were going to throw. Does he help you there? He does, but how much? 29th in expected points added per dropback. A league worst 10.3 yards per pass attempt. Those are just some of the numbers. They are 30th, I believe, in total DVOA, which is, as I've always found, to be probably the best tell of what kind of team you have, what kind of unit you have. They don't start adjusting to opponents until after week 4, so we'll see what it looks like in a couple weeks. But for now, it's not good. And there's a number of areas that you can point to. Certainly in week 1, they couldn't get anything out of their 4-man pass rush. They had to go into the blitz 43% of the time. And as we know, they got exploited for a number of explosive plays. There were 9 of plays of 20-plus yards in that game, and then another of 19. This game, they called one blitz. Zach Kerr calling the shots with Terrell Williams sidelined because of his health concerns. But I think that was the plan anyway. Play a lot of 2 deep safety. Don't let them get over the top of you. However, the effort is good coverage-wise, but the coverage just isn't sticky enough. And the safeties, you can certainly point to them as an issue. I thought Craig Woodson really struggled, was riding the struggle bus for 3 quarters in the game. Jalen Hawkins has been hit or miss. Obviously had another interception taken off the board because of an offside by Caleb Chasson in the first quarter. But in general, he's got to be better. Alex Austin, after I thought a pretty good first day and after a great summer, look, if you talk to Patriots people, they would say we don't want Alex Austin having to cover Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle for a full game. But because of the injury, he had to, and he really struggled. Targeted 7 times, gave up 6 catches, was hit on the 47-yarder from Tyreek Hill, which, if it was a good throw from Tua, is a touchdown. Nearly gave up the touchdown in the fourth quarter late, and there was double there, but he got run away from. I think that was Waddle again in the end zone, and Tua maybe overthrew it by about a yard. So not a great performance. Actually didn't play the full game, sat down for 10 snaps. Marcus Jones ended up playing some outside as well. The Patriots tried to go to a bigger nickel, which Miami completely exploited, 6 of 7 against the big nickel. Patriots want to live in the 4-2-5 with Marcus Jones as the nickel, and that is, we call it their base defense at this point. But they were exploited. To his credit, was smart, hit some of the honey holes, checked down some things, and let Devon Achane and even some of his receivers, go yards after catch. And that's the other part of this. It's not just on the DBs for sticky coverage. It's on the linebackers. I can't tell you how many times I've written this. I have probably already said this on the podcast a number of times. The Patriots have not been able to cover tight ends and running backs since the start of training camp through the joint practices. And now it is carried over into the games. Bowers, Michael Mayer went bonkers in game 1. And in this one, Achane in particular took advantage of Robert Spillane, Christian Ellis, and even Marte Mapu in his few snaps. And I know Mapu had the interception, but then he was toasted on the sideline by Achane. And if Achane's foot doesn't go out of bounds, maybe we're having a different conversation. Maybe we're talking about 0-2 instead of 1-1, but it's 1-1. Not going to take that away from them, but that's just an area they need to be better. It was funny. Number of people observed that Spillane was sort of pissed off after the game, and you won the game, right? So there's the happiness in winning the game, but he knows his performance has got to be better. He's missing tackles. He and Ellis have combined for 14 missed tackles. They're 1-2 in the league in missed tackles. Spillane missed 5 in this most recent game. So, and some of that is in space, right? I mean, they ended up having him cover Achane in man on the play right before the half that Achane took 28 yards for the score on the pass play. Like, there's no way. Spread everybody out, have him work underneath on Spillane. He's not going to be able to run with him. So I don't know how they fix that because that's a foot speed issue as much as anything. And Spillane last year was really good in his zone drops for Vegas, which is one of the reasons why when people are like, he's not very good in coverage. I'm like, no, actually he was real good in coverage the last couple of years in Vegas. But to this point, not so much, certainly not in man situations. And if you're not tackling, if you're not bringing the guy down after he catches the ball immediately and you're adding the yards after catch, you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage. So they've just got to be a hell of a lot better in that regard. And I don't know how you fix that. I mean, it's short of obviously Gonzalez when he comes back, if he is himself. I will say I thought after a subpar first week, Carlton Davis was terrific in week 2. In fact, Miami, in part because Austin's on the other side, but in part because when they went in his direction, they weren't having much success. They pretty much stayed away from Carlton Davis in the game. And to the safety's credit, in the fourth quarter, they tightened things up a little bit. And I thought Woodson and Hawkins played significantly better and made life more difficult for Miami after 3 quarters of things being super easy for Miami. But that's an area of concern for the Patriots that they have to shore up. It looks like Zach Core, that's how he pronounces it, Core, will be calling plays again, as Mike Vrabel told us in Monday's press conference that Terrell Williams will be around, but not sure in what capacity. Again, early to say, but that feels like it could be Zach Core once again on the sidelines with the headset calling plays, and he did get some help from Vrabel, but they need more help. They got to be better. Certainly, Pittsburgh's offense presents a different challenge than the one that Miami does. They don't have nearly the speed that Miami has, but they have a trigger man who wants to get the ball out quick, and they've got some talented players at the skill positions. A couple good tight ends. Jonnu Smith, again, moving on from Miami to Pittsburgh. Pat Freiermuth obviously added DK Metcalf in free agency. Calvin Austin's been pretty good for them the first couple of weeks. So there's the challenge there. We'll see if you can get it. Your overtime quarter here, just a quick bounce around the league. How do you not love Baker Mayfield? Like, there were people that were pushing for them to try to go out and get Baker last year before the draft, remember, in free agency when he was still sort of at loggerheads with Tampa on extension. And I was like, nah, just draft a quarterback, take your own kid and build from there. But truth be told, if this Baker was the one you would have got here, I might have considered it. Bucs are now 2-0, playing without their starting left tackle and right tackle in the game. Tackle Gadecki went down. Wirfs obviously is out as he recovers from the knee injury. They won 20-19 in Houston on Monday night. Mayfield leads an 11-play, 80-yard drive in the closing minutes of the game. 2 massive plays during that drive, including a 4th and 10 where there's all kinds of pressure. He looks screwed. He tucks it, runs, gains 15. A couple plays later, buys some time, hits Bucky Irving out of the backfield for a 22-yard gain. They score with seconds remaining in the game, again, to improve to 2-0. He threw for 215, couple touchdowns, rushed for 35. I love the dude. Proof that coaching matters, the talent around you matters. And, he didn't have the best setup in Cleveland. And certainly the 1 year in Carolina where he and Sam Darnold and PJ Walker were all duking it out for playing time. That was a Matt Rule team. That was a disaster. So he looks great. I think I said this after week 1, the Chiefs look really slow. And the Travis Kelce drop in the goal line that ended up in the hands of Andrew Makuba and went 70 yards down the sidelines is just another example of everything for them in the last couple of years offensively is a struggle. And Mahomes has to be so perfect, and he pretty much is week in, week out. I know some of you don't like him around here. He's awesome. And he's doing everything he can, but they suck around him. And, I'm not counting them out, but I wouldn't put them in my top 10 either. They're 0-2 now. And then how about Daniel Jones? Danny Dimes has now put the Indianapolis Colts in the record books. They scored on all 7 possessions against Miami in week 1. No punts, no kneel downs, 7 possessions, 7 scores. They began the game against Denver, who I think is the best defense in the league, or at least certainly coming into the year. That would have been my thing. First 3 possessions, they scored. So 10 straight possessions to start the year with points on drives. First time that's ever happened in NFL history. Of course, Indianapolis needs a leverage penalty on a missed field goal to get a 15-yard penalty and then kick the game winner to escape and improve to 2-0 with the win over Denver. But Danny Dimes, 23 of 34, 316 yards, 1 touchdown, passing, 1 touchdown, rushing. I think Anthony Richardson's time is up in Indy. I thought it was up anyways. But Daniel Jones making himself some money if he can continue even remotely on this trend for that football team. So good fun stuff around the league. And that's going to do it for the show. I got to remind you, for those listening, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, like, and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit the like button. Subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the moment a new video drops. As I said, I will be back at the end of the week. Still working on that special guest. Think it's going to happen. Pretty excited about it. I hope you would be too. So until then, we'll have coverage in Boston Sports Journal Wednesday, Thursday. We got Drake Maye, we got Vrabel, we got the coordinators, all that stuff. We'll have you covered. And then, of course, I always dish on the weekends with the NFL Notebook. So thank you for taking part. I appreciate it. Don't be afraid to give us some nice reviews. 5 stars are wonderful. You take 5 stars. And don't forget to add questions in there. If you want to have some conversations, I want to carry them on. I want to do an episode, certainly, where we have mailbag incorporated into this thing, or episodes. Maybe it can be a weekly thing. So do that. I appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.